So I had a question about where this stuff is going now. Do you think that languages are starting to like calcify with the advent of the internet? We write everything down. Information, can't be destroyed anymore. So do you think things are starting to lock in, or do you think that this evolution that you talked about is happening and we'll get new languages?
Well, I think the interesting thing is a lot of these, so this language was obviously spoken by a pre-literate society. And for a lot of these dead languages also, they were also pre-literate societies. So the spoken languages evolved a lot more than the written languages did, right? So you get, for example, people were writing in Latin in Europe 1,000 years after Latin died, right? And they were speaking French or Spanish or whatever, which for a long time they just thought was bad Latin before they realized it was a different language, right? No, it's true. To that extent, I think it's a really interesting question. I mean, we can't really stop language change, right? Different dialects, different circumstances, babies picking things up differently. It naturally changes, and that's sort of an unstoppable thing. I think what's more interesting is, right, so you have an imposed sort of literary language, and that seems to be a lot more steadfast in a lot of ways, right? People are still arguing about whether you can split infinitives or do things like that. Whereas the modern language itself, the spoken language, is just evolving in front of our eyes. Like, OK, what's the past tense of sneak? Someone? So anyone say sneaked? Right, OK, so this actually I've seen seems to be a generational divide, right? A lot of people who are over the age of 60 still say sneak, or 70 or so, right? Say sneaked as opposed to snuck, right? Snuck by itself is a modern innovation that we've really only developed in the last couple of decades through analogy, right? We see whatever, sit, sat, things like that. We say snuck, sneaked, or whatever it is. So that's an example of how language is literally changing in front of our eyes, and different people have different forms on a small level. So